Hello everyone, Zelrinth here, and today I was going to go over a little chart here that someone on my Discord showed me that was posted on Reddit today. And so first thing I kind of want to give a caveat to everything on here. This is kind of looking at synergies of teams coming up in the future. Now, a lot of these on the list, you're going to see that they are saying to get specific dupe levels of some of them being really big, especially being Clue-K. Just note that these are not 100% must-haves in that case on the synergies. Now, what I see kind of looking at these and specifically the numbers that they're saying on them, like a Vector V1 and the Makiatto V2 on this burn team sticks out quite clear to me. It's kind of letting me know what they're meaning when it comes to when they're putting these dupe levels on these units in these teams. And so the biggest thing that it's going by with that is you're kind of looking at diminishing returns in terms of if you're someone that's spending like me, what is like the best stop point on getting dupes for a unit when it comes to maximizing their power within that capacity of that team. And so that's why you can kind of see a Clue-K V6 on the corrosion as your main damage dealer, because her V6 is absolutely broken in that respect. But if you're kind of using her as your a secondary person on this side of things, her V3 is quite fine. It's broken in its own right there. But that also doesn't take away from the fact that she's also still broken at V0. It's just you're not, once you go above a certain level when it comes to the specific teams, you start to get those diminishing returns, which is not worth the pulls if that's the capacity that you're using that unit in. Makiatto's another good one. If you're going to use her on the burn team as being someone that gives some support attacks to help out QJ, you really V2s where you got the maximum capabilities from her on that respect. But if you want the maximum capabilities where she's your primary DPS in the freeze team, well, then you can go for V6 because that just really ramps up her damage. And so that's just kind of thinking it from that. So for my free-to-plays, don't take this as in a way that you, oh, I need to just not pull on anything at all until Clue-K comes out because I've got to get that Clue-K V6 because I want her to be my main core DPS. She will work quite fine without a V6 if you want to build your corrosion team. Just know that this is also kind of looking at it from the standpoint of wanting to maximize your abilities within the platoon system in that, because these are like the units you're going to be able to borrow from other people within your platoon. And so don't worry about it in that respect, but I thought I'd kind of just go through some of these teams and give my thoughts on them here. And specifically a big one I want to look at since Makiatto is coming out tomorrow would be her on this list. All right, so the first team we're going to look at here regarding a Makiatto, I want to kind of look at the team synergies here, is this burn team. Now, we already know it. One of the big teams that I am pushing for to maximize for the end game is Burn. I have QJ. I've already discussed it in a lot on why you want to get her V3 as soon as you can. And she's going to be one that's possible being a standard unit because in February, you're going to be able to switch it to that rate up selector and you can target QJ and try and get her dupes that way. And over the course of a few months, you should possibly be able to get V3 on her. So that one is not going to be too difficult there. I have Vector here. Vector is going to be a core component of the burn team as well, as one of the big things on her is she increases the amount of support attacks that a fire type damage will happen. So QJ naturally has her 3. If she uses her ultimate, she has 4. So if Vector uses her ability to bring that up, it brings it up to 5. But then when you look at her V1, the reason they put V1 is because it is an additional support attack that it can bring burn type attacks. So that can bring a QJ up to a 6 that she can do. You can kind of look at it here on the chart here on Vector. So it is, let's see which skill, I believe it's the ultimate here. Or is it just the passive? Yeah, it's the passive here. At the start of battle, increases attack count of support attacks that deal burn damage by 1. And that is something that QJ is going to have once we get her expansion key. And so that just naturally raises it by 1 for her. And then you have the V1 that right here at the bottom here, the increase in attack count of support attack that deals burn damage is now 2 instead of 1. And so that's why they say it's a great big point on her for V1. Now, if you get more dupes of Vector, it's going to make her better. But it has the diminishing returns on the value you're getting out of the pulls. And So right there's that. Now we're here kind of more to discuss how Makiatto fits in this, because she's coming out tomorrow to release. Makiatto V2 is going to be extremely good on the burn team, and that's going to be my target for her. And I'll kind of explain my poll planning on how I'm going to get that, because I'm not pulling for V2 tomorrow. I'm only going to be pulling for V1. And that is when you kind of look at her here. So we already kind of know the big thing on her getting her really good single target damage is that she, on her cold precision shot, which is what she's going to want to do a lot of her own damage, that V1 makes it where now she could do 2 hits if she gets a crit, and that second one's guaranteed to crit after the first one. So that makes her single target damage get to the same levels as QJ. Now, why they put it as V2 being the goal if you're going for the burn team is that V2 down here changes her Overwatch capabilities. And so Overwatch is like her reactionary skill when a target attacks one of your teammates, or she'll attack back. It makes it go from 2 to 3. Why this is huge is because QJ, when she can do 6, because Vector can bring her up to being able to do 6 support attacks, it is really hard to actually pull off all 6 of those support attacks. And so Makiatto is going to be extremely good for bringing it up to that extra 3 to be able to get all of them off. Now, you can bring it up to 4 if you get her V6, but that's starting to get diminishing returns, because you can get more, like QJ has 6, you can get 3 from Makiatto on her Overwatch, you can get 1 from her normal attack, so that's 4 right there. But then you also have other teammates that can attack as well, triggering QJ's support attack. So it's not necessary to go all the way to V6 just for that additional one. That V2 is quite nice on its own, and you get the benefit with your V2 of already having your V1, which increases Makiatto's damage quite well. And so when we go back to here, you can see, so that is why the V2 is really good here. It's all you really need, because you're going to have Vector. Vector's going to do her own attacks that are going to trigger one. Makiatto's going to do her own that's going to do it. And then you're going to have whoever your healer is in the team do their own attack / something that'll react. And that's how you can get all 6 of her attacks out when she uses her ultimate. And so if you are one of those people that wants to go the full burn team, I think this is a fairly free-to-play friendly team comp, even though it mentions having these dupes. And one of the reasons why is I think there's a great opportunity to actually be able to pull off a Makiatto V2 and a Vector V1 and be able to still get some other units. Because the big thing when it comes to this list to me is you don't want to be going, like Kluke V6 is a big one where it's like you don't want to not pull anything all the way up until she releases as a free-to-play to get that V6, because that's just not fun, and you're probably going to quit the game if you're not doing any pulling in these types of games, and you're seeing everybody else do it, just waiting for it. You may not even get her at that point because you're going to quit because you're going to get bored. But with this this burn one, I think this one's very realistic, because I think at this point you could even just pull Makiatto V1 right now, or V0, sorry. You can just get her V0 right now, or you could skip her. It really doesn't matter on that capacity, because what I've seen on the Discord and mentioned is on the anniversary, they've come out on the CN side with a banner that has 100% guarantee to get the unit banner. And Makiatto was one of the units there. So there may be an opportunity in the future to get dupes of her guaranteed without having to risk losing a 50-50 to a standard unit. And so come tomorrow, maybe you just pull Makiatto, get her V0 so that you can build her up, use her within your teams right now and kind of be in that ice capacity of the initial start. And down the line, once we kind of have Vector and QJ and all your teams starting to come together, you can then from there maybe get your extra 2 dupes on one of those type of banners on the anniversary. There's potential there be a selector in the future where you can select a limited unit. Now that one's a paid for when I've seen. Now these are all things I've seen on Discord. I don't know if on all these, I haven't verified any of it, but there may be opportunities to get those dupes in the future. So I think getting a Makiatto V0 for now to be a really good sniper unit within your teams now, and then potentially getting the dupes later for the fire team is a good opportunity there for her. And then, so that's kind of how she fits into the burn team. Now, even if you just get V0, she's going to be great with QJ because she still has 2 support attacks. And if you don't get Vector V1, that means she's only going to go up to 5, which means V0 is good enough on Makiatto alongside a V0 Vector, and then a V3 QJ. That'll be completely fine for my free-to-play who don't want to do any dupes. And so that is kind of your core team right there if you want to go that direction. And then you have the same thing down here. Now, the freeze team, it's all about maximizing your DPS out of Makiatto because she's your damage dealer in that capacity. The burn team, she's not your primary damage dealer, so you don't care as much about her being able to get all that out. So they have her at V6 here because every dupe of her just makes her do more damage and then makes her the core unit of that team. Same thing with Dushnavaya. I think that's how you say Dushivna. I don't know. I'm terrible at the pronunciation. They have her at V6 as well, and because she's one of the weaker supports in the game, and one of the reasons that Freeze is kind of rated a little bit low in terms of team damage. Like all the other ones are viewed a little better than Freeze at this point, and people are kind of waiting for that next big support unit on the Freeze team to really min-max the capabilities of it. And I think that's why they are marking these as V6s down here versus say Electric, where it only has Andrus and Belka, needing one dupe for Andrus and none for Belka to really min-max them. But then you want to get your V6 Mosin Nagant because she's going to be extremely useful in this team as well. But when it comes to this one, I think realistically V1 is ultimately all you need with the Makiatto and the Freeze team. And then Dushnava is I mean, she's all right, but everything I've seen on her, she's kind of mid in terms of the support she brings. And I mean, it's tough to fit on this team, but you can pull her. She's going to be one of your better values there. Suomi, she's already ice. We got like the best of the best in terms of your sustains already for ice. You have that. And then you just bring whoever else can kind of be your extra unit to add some damage. I mean, you're already kind of mixing in that burn side of things if you want to bring QJ. If your focus is on Makiatto, QJ still can add in damage to that group. But then you also have Kluke in the future that can come. Kluke V0 is quite fine, but Kluke V3 will work really well. It's kind of it's a good stopping point if you're really wanting to push hard on Kluke, which I know a lot of people are. And the reason it's V3 here versus 3-6 on that ice team is when you kind of look at what is on her. And that's because she's not going to be your main damage dealer on the Freeze team. But what the big thing is that the V6 brings is it's going to widen the attack of the ultimate from just being the single line that's really good at hitting bosses to now being an AoE clear attack. Where is the V6 one unit? It basically increases the width of it by 2 tiles and now can apply fear. So this little thing goes out to in both these directions. So it's basically a clearing ability. And so she's just outright annihilating everything as the main DPS in that capacity. But since in this regard, you're just using her as an assist to Makiatto, V3 is viewed as a good stopping point simply because you're more likely using her now as a bossing unit. And on V3, where it's right here, it's adding that part to the ultimate where it's now if a boss target is hit, the damage is increased to 50% immediately. And then if you hit a boss, you can immediately use it again. So you're getting the maximum capabilities out of her ultimate if you get her V3. But like I said, V0 is quite fine on its own. I mean, she's probably the lesser. I'd actually probably put more value on QJ than Kluke at a V0 on this one. And that's probably why they say V3, because you can use other units probably better than her in some of these team comps. And then you can kind of look at the last spot they have her on this list, which is in that Corrosion team. And I think the Corrosion team is probably the least free-to-play friendly of the team comps here. Especially if you want to get Kluke V6, but you don't need V6 to take advantage of this. But I say it's the least free-to-play because it does have Kluke, who's going to be expensive one, Mekti, who is another non-free-to-play. Parita, you can get, she's on the standard banner, and you can max her pretty easily once we start maxing out her character, so you can start heavily going into that dispatch mystery coin system, whatever. Once you can start investing in that and getting more pulls out of there, you'll eventually be able to get her to V3 or V6, sorry. And then any healer, you're going to want to get a good healer. Everybody has Suomi, so Suomi fit in that. And so they have Makiatto as just being an independent BPS. This is if you have a 5-team comp, basically, because you're going to have your 4 right here, and then Makiatto can come in as just being extra damage, because that's all. This team is already complete with these core 3, and then she's just extra damaged there, and she can kind of fill any of that gaps as extra damage. But that pretty much sums up the teams I have here on Makiatto on this kind of list. Now, this isn't all-encompassing. I mean, this is just looking into the future, trying to get some ideas of how you want to pull in the future. I do really like Makiatto on this list because I think her team comp here, if you really want to go into burn, is something that is feasible for my free-to-plays out there in terms if you want to get that maximum value out of the team. Because Makiatto, you can get right now, she's coming out right in the beginning. And then that means when we eventually get the expansion key for QJ and Vector coming out, we're probably going to have our reruns on her, potentially getting that anniversary or mid-anniversary banner where you have a 100% guarantee on the limited unit, where then you could probably get your dupes from her. So I think this one will be actually quite easy to get as a free-to-play without having to skip a lot of people, because I think that's the big thing that I've seen with a lot. They're like, I need to skip all of these other units because I want to get my Clue K at V6, or I want to get my Springfield, and Springfield's probably a year out for us. You don't want to be skipping that much if you're free to play. And so Makiatto is a good pick just because it's going to leave you the opportunity to kind of pull some of the other units in the game that you may not even see on this list, because there's plenty of great units and they all have their value in the teams. And if you're not trying to be in that top 1% whale guild that's trying to get that top title in the platoon, it doesn't matter that much. But you can kind of just use this as a thought process. Don't use it as the I must pull these units. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.